Well, hello everyone, this is Heath Robinson with Topaz Labs. So excited to be back again with our friend Hazel Meredith to present creative editing with Topaz Studio.
All righty, we're ready to go. Hi everyone, thanks for joining me again. I'm happy to be back with Topaz. Today I'm going to show you some, different ways that you can layer some of the presets and effects and use the different products together. So I'm going to jump right in because I have lots of projects for you. I've been doing a lot of playing lately. So you're going to see my images kind of, everybody always asks, how did you get that image over there? I have two screens, two monitors, so I have all of my images open in a folder on the second monitor. So I'm just dragging from that monitor into the middle of Studio. If you're working with one screen, you would just go up to File, Open, and open an image or product, and then look for where the image is on your computer. So I'm doing it this way just to make it a little bit quicker, I think. So the one thing that I have started doing with pretty much every image is using the fabulous AI Clear. Absolutely love this. It is better than anything I have ever used in software. Not just because it's Topaz, I'm saying that, but I really, truly am just blown away with this product. So we are going to go ahead and I'm going to just click off here and make sure it's applied, because sometimes it likes to remember what you've done, but it doesn't always process it quite the same way. So we're going to let it just do the quick run, and you can see the progress bar going. I'm going to leave the default settings on this one, and if I click here, you can see just how much it's like crisped up all of these details in this flower. I really, really love it. So I'm going to apply that because that's just how I do kind of my workflow. I use apply probably more than most people, but I like to do that between, especially if you're using the presets, because if you do a preset and then you want to use another preset, if you don't apply the first one, then the second one's going to overwrite it. So you want to make sure you do the apply to make sure you don't lose what you've already done. So we're going to jump into this poinsettia. I know holidays are over, but I was playing with this one 2 weeks ago. And when I started this one, I wasn't quite sure what direction I wanted to go. So I did try a couple of different things in texture effects, and I started layering presets, and I really liked the results that I was getting. So the first thing we're going to do, I started with the AI Remix, which is another fun one. And the one that I used was, I'm glad that these are labeled now, because it makes it much easier to find. And I want Platinum Rose. And again, I've tried a whole bunch of things before I found the one that I really liked. So, it is still a matter of trial and error. Sometimes I do have kind of an idea of where I want to go with an image, but not always. And this one, I was just looking for something that was a little different, that would change the colors up and give it a different look. So I really liked this one, and I did make a couple small changes. I went to medium on the style strength, and then I lowered the saturation. Actually, I upped the saturation to about 92. Just really popped those colors a little bit. So we're going to hit apply. And what I started doing when I did these ones where I started layering is I would save this one and go, okay, I like that and it looks good, but then I'm always the one who goes, so what else can I do? So we're going to go next into texture effects, which of course is one of my favorites. And I went into the earthy category, and the one that I liked was Savannah Noon. And this one really made the colors pop. Just gave it a really nice, rich feel. And I didn't change anything in that preset. So we're going to go ahead and apply that one. And then we're going to go back to texture effects, this time to the nature category. And I used Beach Dreams. And I just thought that was fabulous. I loved that gold and green look. I thought that was just very elegant looking. Completely different look from where we started with the bright, pinkish reds. But what I did want to add to this was a little bit of a vignette and darken those edges just a little bit. So I like to do that with clicking on adjustments and going to a texture. And then we can choose the borders And there's a few that I use quite often. Some of these ones that have the darker edges, and the one that I want this time is this one here. I'm going to keep the blending mode at multiply, and I did bring the opacity higher to emphasize that just a little bit more. So it just gave it that nice soft edge. I like the use of a vignette or a border like that to darken the edges just a little bit. So if you're looking at this for the first time, you almost don't really even see that that is there, but it's focusing your viewer's eye on your main subject. I had a little get together with some people from my camera club last night, and we were talking about vignetting, and it's something I always comment on too when I'm judging an image. Sometimes you just need that to just bring that viewer's eye in a little bit. So let's apply that, and then I want to show you how using these presets layered sometimes gives you a better result. Now we saw how beach dreams looked after we did it here. If we went back to our original and we applied that beach dreams, it is definitely not the same look. And I really didn't like that. To me, that one kind of looked a little washed out. So that's why sometimes, you know, you need to play around a little bit and try some different combinations, and you can get some surprising results. All right, so let's close this one. I'm not going to save them because I already have them all saved. But you could go in and I have like each version of this saved because I did like all of them. So we're not going to save those now. So I'm going to bring in my next image. And the first few are like kind of flowers and leaves and stuff. Don't worry, I do have some things that are not just flowers and leaves. So we will get to those shortly. I know people like to see different things. So this one I had done some basic editing, really pumped up the color, and I kind of like that. But again, it's always, what else can I do to that? So we're going to go into Remix again. And this time I went to Well-Worn Path. And in this one, I was looking to kind of almost do a sort of a sketch effect, but just kind of like a real pale watercolor look. And I thought that was a good place to start. And I did make some adjustments here. So I did lower that brightness a little bit. And then I brought up the contrast a little bit more. And saturation came down. And we're going to smooth the edges a little bit more. And bring the sharpness down a touch and suppress artifacts. We're going to go about halfway. And down here where this enhance button is, I'm going to click on that and I'm going to choose impression. And what that's letting me do is add this effect right into this preset. So from here, let's scroll down. So now we've got our impression right here. I'm going to use the brush that it's already on. I'm going to lower the opacity just a little bit. And sometimes that I would actually come back and do that at the end. And I actually did change the brush to number 9. I wanted the number of strokes on high. And our brush size went up a little bit. And these are just, you know, playing around to see how it looks on that image and see what you like, what the results are. So I'm going to go up a little bit here on the paint volume, the paint opacity I'm going to leave. Then we're going to go down into the color section, and I'm going to bring the overall saturation. Oops, wrong way. I wanted to minus it a little bit. Then we're going to come down to lighting, and we're going to add some more contrast. So we're about 0.3-ish. I want the lighting position in the center. I want a vignette, but then I'm going to get it there, but I want the color to be white, not black. So we're going to go okay here and fade out those edges somewhat. Leave the vignette strength, the vignette transition, we're going to bring down a little bit. And then we're going to go down to the texture section. And here we can apply, this texture is actually being applied like under the image. It's giving you the illusion of it being on a particular surface. These are in alphabetical order, which makes it easier. And I went with paper 2. I'm going to bring up the texture strength and the texture size. So if you zoom in, you can get a feel of that kind of paper look that it's on now. And then we are going to, let's go back up here. We can kind of close this down just so we're actually going to put another AI clear on here now. So now I'm going to do my AI clear and sharpen it up just a little bit. And I used the defaults and I brought the opacity back, whoops, wrong one, to about 50% and apply. Okay, so there's our image. So that one, I liked the effect, but of course, let's see what else we can do. So you could create a variation on this one, going back over to Texture Effects. We'll go into the Abstract collection, and I used Mauve Fog. And that gave it a more grungy, darker look. So just, very different. You could do something like that, or you have the lighter original look like that we had. Again, it's a matter of personal preference, but it's a way you can, take an image and go from those bright orange leaves, and we ended up with something very subdued and painterly looking. So let's give a close of these. And now we're going to do kind of a different theme of leaves. This was just a quick shot I did when I was out in the fall, just up into the tree. And it's like, nothing special, but let's see what we can do to create something cool with it. So I went into Simplify. And this I was looking to go totally abstract. Went into BuzzSim, and I liked this black and white. And I thought that was a pretty neat way to start. So in the abstraction category, I made the simplify size just a little bit bigger, just playing around with some of these sliders, and then hit apply. So that was version number 1. And now I'm going to go into impression, impressionistic. I can turn off the public ones so we can have a shorter list, and go down to swirly strokes 3. And it's thinking. We're getting there. There we go. So now we've gotten very abstract, just something totally unlike our original. So I'm going to hit apply. So that's our second one. And we're going to go back to impression, to the modern category. And this one that I liked was actually one of the public ones. So we're going to leave that checked. And this one was called Abstract Street. And I thought that was a pretty interesting look. So we're going to apply that one. And then one more. We're going to add 4 to this one. We're going to go into glow. I wanted to see how we could really make this pop. Go into liquid designs. And I thought these were actually pretty cool too, but I went with liquid color 2 to pump up those blues. And I'm going to apply that. And I thought that was just like a really nice soft, abstract look to this tree. And then once I was done, I thought maybe some of these branches are a little too dark, and you could come in here with the healing brush, bring this brush size down a little bit, and you could, go through and just heal these out and kind of blend it into, the surrounding areas. I'm not going to take time to do them all, but just give you an idea. You could, then modify these even further, or you could do some cloning if you wanted to as well, back over in Photoshop. Alrighty, so let's close these guys. And we're going to do this fun peony. And I must say, I watched the webinar, I think it was last month, that Greg Rastami did, and I thought that was fabulous. He's a really good teacher too. So if you've missed that one, definitely go back and watch that recording. And I adapted this technique from his. It's similar, but then I did a few tweaks of my own. So first we're going to do our AI clear. And in this one I did high on the sharpness, and then I even added a little bit more clarity, because this wasn't a tack sharp photo, but we're going to just pump it up a little bit here. And I'm going to apply that. So in this one, we're going to use AI Remix. And we're going to go with this first one, the Neon Rise, which is really cool. The Style Strength Medium, I liked better. We're going to come down here to our contrast, and we're going to pump that up a little bit. And we're going to take our saturation down just a little. And then we're going to go to our Enhance menu, and we're going to go to Glow. And so now we have our glow open. We're working with the primary glow. I want it on the dark side. Primary glow strength, about there. Sharpness, about there. And you can see that this is starting to pump up these edges a little bit, which is what I was going for. And then the electrify, we're going to bring up a little bit. So we just really wanted to make those edges pop. So I'm not going to hit the apply this time, because we're going to add another remix right over this one. So let's just close this down, and we're going to do AI Remix again, because we're going to be blending these two together. So that's why we want them to basically be on the same layer per se. This time we're going to use Beige Sketch. And it's going to start doing some things that you don't expect, but don't panic. It will look cool when we're done. So this time I'm going to use high for the style strength. I'm going to bring the brightness up a little. And here we're looking to create an outline, is what we're doing in this part of the process. Contrast, we're really going to pump up here. And then we're going to bring the saturation all the way down, because we just want a black and white. We just want this sketch effect, which in itself is pretty cool if you want to create a sketch look as well. Come down here, we're going to smooth the edges a little bit more. So I'm really looking to just get some nice crisp lines out of this. Bring up the sharpness and suppress the artifacts. And what that's doing is getting rid of some of the other little subdued effects in there. So now we're going to go back to the top of this effect, and from the normal blending mode, we're going to change this to multiply, and voila. Now you can see we've added those dark outlines. Let me hide that for a second. That was with the first remix, and then those outlines just almost gives it that like cartoony comic book kind of a feel. But I thought that was just fabulous. I actually have this as my Facebook header right now, because I really like the way that looked. I thought it looked really pretty with this particular image.
That's awesome. Can you show before and after before you, like full before and
Sure.
after?
The actual flower,
Yeah.
we went from that to that. And then without the outline, that was with the first remix preset with the glow adjustments. And then when we did the outlines and just plop those on there, that just really, to me, it really made it come together. And I thought that was a really cool technique. So thanks, Greg, if you're listening. I really like that one. All right, so let's close this guy. And we're going to do one more nature one, and then we're going to get into something else. So this one, I'm going to show you a couple things. We're going to do some different layering, and then I'm going to show you what I did with the 4 versions when I was done. So this one, I'm also going to start with AI Remix. And I used, gotta find it, Tranquil Retreat. Say that 3 times fast. Okay, so that was all I did to that first one. That was my first version of this leaf. So now I'm going to layer on top of this. We're going to go into impression, and I'm just going to click impression itself. And I went to, this was actually a public one as well. And I wanted, where'd it go? Missed it. No, it's here. I just found it before. No. Right, I'm going to type it in. That's the other thing you can do if you know the name of something and then you can't find it. You can.
It looks like it was sorted by featured. If you sort by A to Z, it will. Yeah.
I should have just went for my favorites, but sometimes they get out of order on me. All right, so that was the preset, but I'm going to make some changes to this one. I didn't really like the border that this created. I thought it was a little bit too heavy, so I'm going to delete that first texture. And then I'm going to go into our adjustments and go to texture. And the one I wanted was this one. And I'm going to change the blending mode to darken. And I'm going to leave the opacity there. I'm going to add another texture. And this one is, let's go here, textures. And this was under heavy grunge. Makes it a little bit easier to find. It's this red and blue one. And I'm going to change that one to hard light and bring the opacity up just a little bit. And that is going to be our second version. So now I'm going to do another one with texture effects. And this one is, let's go A to Z so I can find it. And this is Dreaming in Color. Whoops. There it is. And this one I wanted to get rid of that heavy frame, which is this last texture. And you can always toggle these parts of the preset on and off if you kind of like the preset, but maybe it's not quite what you want. You know, experiment with turning off a particular function. That one's the light leak. If you don't like that, you can, just delete that one. I'm just going to trash that one texture. And then I'm going to add in a different border. So we're going to go into our textures again. And we can go into the borders. And this one, I wanted to use this one. And I'm going to change the contrast up a little bit. And then if you click on this edit button under here, that gives you a free transform tool. And what I actually wanted to do was to bring this in just a little bit more. You could either bring it closer to the edges or you could bring it further in. But that's another way that you can play around with your textures, is you can actually change them right here. So I'm going to go ahead and apply that one. All right, so that's our first three. So for the fourth one, I actually went back and started with the yellow leaf again. So I'm going to bring that one back over here. And I'm going to duplicate this because I'm going to create a shadow with this one. And I'm going to show you how I do that. So I'm going to need 2 copies. So I'm going to duplicate that first. So I'm going to use impression and go into the charcoal and pastel. And chalk pastel 1. And here I'm going for something really faded and light. Actually, that's not it. It hasn't finished processing yet. Okay. And we're going to open this up. And I'm going to change the brush size just a little bit, make it a little bit bigger. The paint volume, I'm going to leave low. Stroke rotation, and that's, just changing the directions of the strokes themselves, and then varying the way that it's rotating it. I'm going to bring that up some. Vary the color a little bit. So we're going to bring that one up. The length variation. The spill I'm going to take all the way up, and you'll see that that is kind of giving it that really soft edge that I'm looking for. And I'm also going to smudge it a little bit. Coverage we're going to bring back some so it's a little bit lighter. And the transition, we're going to go up about there. And then I'm going to come down to the color section. And we're going to lighten this up even more. The overall lightness, about there. And then we're going to add some texture to this as well. This one I used Canvas 1. And I always like to make the strength of these a little bit heavier so that you can see it more, as well as changing the sizes a little bit. Okay, so that is our shadow. Now I'm not going to apply this. Let's come up here. I'm going to just close this down so you can see it. So what I want to do now is I want to add our solid leaf on top of this one. So I'm going to click over here on image, and that's going to let me then drag this over here and layer it on top of the other one. But what I want to do, because this background is white, I actually want to mask the background. So a quick way I found to do this, if we click on our thumbnail here, we get our layer mask. If we do it by color, it's actually going to mask the leaf, but we want the background masked. So then we can just click on this little symbol and it inverts the mask. So it's like a really quick, fast way to do a mask when you have a solid background color like that, which I thought was very cool. I kind of discovered that just playing around in there, and I thought that was a great feature. So now I want to edit this image as well, and that's going to give me that hand tool, and I'm going to drag this one down so you can see that shadow that we created underneath of it. So now we have our leaf with our shadow, which I thought is a pretty cool effect. Actually, I'm going to bring this up just a little bit that direction. And now I'm going to hit apply, and then we're going to add a texture effect on top of that. So we're going to come back over here to our texture effects, go down to vintage, and a little dingy. And then I want to add another texture for a border. So we're going to go to textures, borders, and this is one of the ones that I like to use a lot. We're going to leave it at multiply and 50%. And actually, I added one more border to just darken it a little bit more. Borders, come down here and added this one. And multiply 50%, and we're good. So we're going to hit apply. So now I'm going to show you a cool project I did, and I did do this over in Photoshop, but I took these 4 images, saved all of these variations, and I have it open just for quickness. I brought one into Photoshop, changed my canvas size, and then just brought all of the others in as individual layers, just like you would with a texture, and then added a texture in the background and did a layer style with a drop shadow. So I created this little I don't know, piece of art with the 4 versions. So this would be, something I could definitely see hanging on a wall, or, make some cards or that kind of thing. So I thought that was a pretty cool little project. Alrighty, how are we doing on time? 5:30, good. All right, so let's close all these guys. And we'll get to something other than leaves and flowers right now. We're going to do this old train car. This was when we were down in West Virginia last year. Well, it's 2 years ago now because it was 2017, at Cass Railroad, which is a steam train. So this was a 3-shot HDR that I processed in Photomatics. And we're going to do some, to me, this kind of an image, because it's so old and rusty, it needed to look old and rusty and grungy, and that's what I'm going for with this image. So I did do AI clear on this one, and you're going to see how it really cleans up this noise. I'll let it do its first run, and then I'm going to change some of the presets. So on this one, I went, you can see there's a lot of noise in here, so I'm going to go high on the noise and high on the sharpness. And wow, you can see all that noise is gone. It's all nice and crisped up. I really think I did a wonderful job there. So I'm going to apply that one. And then we're going to start with texture effects. Of course we are. Alrighty, so I'm going to go to my texture effects into Gritty Grunge. And the one that I used is Tarnished Air. And I thought this just really, I liked what it did with the colors, and just really made it, gave it that more rusty look that it really looked like. Took away that kind of bluish tint that I got from doing the HDR. So on this one, this second texture, this one is controlling some of this border. So I brought down the opacity of it a little bit, and I thought this corner was much darker than this one. So I opened this up and I actually flipped it horizontally to see if that would help. And it did take a little bit of the darkness away here and made that, it kind of balanced it better. So sometimes you can, look at things like that as well when you're working with textures, because sometimes moving them around, flipping them vertically or horizontally might give it a better look for what you're going for. And I'm going to add a couple of more things to this. So we're going to go into textures, and we're going to go to our textures group. And for category, I'm actually going to use mine. This is part of texture effects. There used to be 20 of my textures in here. There's now 59. Yeah. They just added 39 more. So if you've updated your texture effects plugin recently, you now have all these extra textures in here, which is pretty cool. I'm going to start with this brownish one, and I'm going to change the blending mode to hard light and bring down my opacity a little bit. And then I'm going to go back. We're going to add another one. Go into our textures again, back to these. And I liked this one. We're going to change this blending mode to overlay. And you'll see sometimes you see these other ones as the cursor scrolls across, you kind of see things pop up, and that would be why. And you can see that, you know, this one, if I turn it off, that one just added a little bit more grunge and texture to it. And then the last one, I thought this corner was still a little dark. So what I did was go back into textures. And this time we're going to use a light leak. I'm going to use this one, and I'm going to flip it horizontally because I want it to be up here. And then I'm going to lower that down to about 20% or so. So just added a little more light up here because I thought that corner was getting just a little too heavy. And that is that image. So it gave it, you know, from our original, gave it some nice grunge. Made it look like it belongs with that image to me. All right. Next, we're going to do an old barn. Another one that I just needed something more than the real color. This is also an HDR image, so it did get a little bit of a blue tint, but I liked the way it was bringing out all of the detail in this old wood. So this one I did crop just slightly once I was done with it. I brought down the sky a little because there's not much going on up there. And I brought this over just past those little fence posts and left that one big one there. So done. And I also wanted to get rid of, I didn't like that big fence post there. So I'm going to grab the healing tool, the brush, and I'm just going to do a swipe right down. And that did a pretty good job and got rid of that. So we'll say done. So for this one, I really wanted to go with, I don't know if I wanted a true black and white, but something along a black and white kind of a version. We're going to go into our vintage category and down to time-worn memory. I thought that was rather appropriate for this image. And I kind of like that, but of course I'm going to do something else to it. We're going to add a little more texture to it. So we're going to go in here, texture, and group textures. And this time we're going to go with the heavy grunge. And I went with this one. We're going to use that at multiply. And then we're going to bring down the opacity just a little bit more. I just liked, it did a little something for the sky because there wasn't much going on up there. So I liked that one there. And then now I wanted to do that, you know, border effect, give it a little bit of that vignette. So we're going to go in here. We'll go to our borders group. And again, one of my favorites here is this one. And we're going to do that multiply. And I did bring it down just a little bit more to about 30%. And apply that. And I really like the way that one came out. I thought it just, the colors fit that image to me. It just made it look like now it belongs, you know, with the subject as well as the coloring. All right, so let's close these guys. I've got one more flower that I had done and posted on Facebook, and people wanted to see it, so I have to make sure I include this one. So this was a nice mum. Took this at a Botanical Garden up in upstate New York near Buffalo. Actually, this one was in Rochester when we were up there at Thanksgiving time. So we're going to do our AI clear. And And then after this one, I'm going to show you a quick demo of Gigapixel as well, because I had requests for that. So we're going to do this, and now we're going to do our AI remix. And I thought this would be a nice one too to really crop in. I really love the center of that flower. But we're going to do some funky stuff over here. We're going to go down to Well-Worn Path. Again, just really just trying to change it up and give it a different look and see what I can come up with that looks cool. We're going to apply these now, and then we're going to add another texture. Come back over here to the earthy category this time. And we're going to just add a little bit of color with Sheer Spring. It just, gave it a little bit of a different coloring. I didn't really like the light leak, so I'm going to get rid of these two. I thought it just faded it out a little too much for the top. But then we're going to change this dual tone from normal to soft light as well. Just soften that up a little bit. And then I'm going to add another texture. Actually, I'm going to change this texture. So if I turn this one off, you can see it's adding the color, but it's like lighter on the top than the bottom. So I wanted to get something similar in tone, but that was more solid color throughout. So we're going to delete that one. Go back to our texture. And see if we can find this one. 3. And we're going to go with this one. And I'm going to use overlay as our blending mode and bring the opacity up a little bit. So I kind of liked that. It's almost that sketch effect, but with some color in it, which I thought was nice. And then we're going to add one more texture. We're going to do a border. And we're going to use this one, similar to what we did before. This one, I kind of like the shape. I thought it was encroaching a little bit here, so I tried flipping it horizontally, and that actually made it fit a little better. It made it heavier on this side where there was more room and a little bit thinner over here, so I thought that worked pretty well. And that was my finished product of that one. Alrighty, we're a quarter hour, so good timing. So I'm going to close these guys, and then I'm going to show you Gigapixel. All right, so close that. I already have it open here. So really simple. When you first open it, you don't see a whole lot. I'm going to just drag in an image, and this was an image that I had sized to a 4x6 to post on Facebook. So it was very small, and this was also an iPhone image that I had processed on my iPhone with some textures. So all you need to do to decide what you want to do in here is you can enlarge it either by scale or by size, so by a percentage, or if you want to give it an exact size that you want to go up to, you can do that. I'm going to use scale for this one at 400%. If it's a noisy original, you can go strong on the noise and blur. Sometimes that's not necessary. It depends, again, on your image. You may have to try it more than once to see what works best on your image. I'm going to leave it on strong because I know this is a very small image that was highly processed. Output is going to be a JPEG, image quality maximum. I'm going to leave the same color profile as it has. And then it's going to save it back to my same folder by this box being checked off. And it will add this underscore output to the end of the current file name. You can change that if you want, and if you want to put something in front of the file name, you can do that as well by typing it in here. I'm not going to save the metadata right now because it will take more time. For this particular one, I don't need to. And all I have to do is hit start. And this image, because it is small, is going to process very quickly. I've done this with higher resolution images and things that do take a little bit longer, so it depends on that. Plus, it will depend on the speed of your computer. So I've got the green check mark. I am done. I actually have this one open for you over in Photoshop just so I can show you the comparisons. So here is, this was the original. If we really zoom in, you can see how pixelated it looks. And then the output one, it's not perfectly sharp, but that's because of the textures I use, but you can see it's not pixelated at all, not like this original one. We went from, you know, this awful stuff, and this is now 400% of the size of the original one. This is now image, it is, we go by inches, it's 53 inches by 37 inches. At 72, I would change that. But again, that was what the original was. And then I have another example open for you, and this one you've probably seen on the website. This was a bird I photographed. This was high resolution, but this particular shot is the 4x6 that I posted on Facebook, and I enlarged this at 600%, and that's how sharp it is. And I was just blown away when I saw this. I thought that was just totally fabulous. I know he's going to get into some of the Q&A now. I did want to mention as well, I know some people have asked in the past, I have the last couple webinars been doing notes that are available on my website. If you're, we can get to that at the end, but just want to let you know I did do them for this webinar as well.
Guys, if you want to follow Hazel, you can always reach out to her at her website and email her with questions that weren't answered at meredithimages.com. Also visit her Facebook page. She posts a lot of great work there at facebook.com/meredithimages. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out to us at webinars@topazlabs.com or sign up for upcoming webinars. I know we have a 2-part webinar with Joe Reardon next week, going Monday and Tuesday, that is on the webinars page at topazlabs.com/webinars. And of course, we've got a user forum. If you guys want to visit the forum, talk to other Topaz users, you can visit that there at discuss.topazlabs.com. And with that, Hazel, thank you so much for taking some time out to present with us. That's always a pleasure.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thanks everyone for coming. We'll see you in a future webinar.
Alrighty, thanks. Bye-bye.